very excited to introduce to you one of the most dynamic and fascinating individuals who I've had the honor of meeting. We got to hang out a little bit yesterday and had a really, really moving conversation. I really appreciate and am inspired by the gentleman who I'm going to sit next to. So, Mr. Ahmass Fakahany is the owner and CEO of the Altamarea Group. It's a hospitality firm which now includes 16 restaurants across the world. He's also the CEO of its subsidiary, Alia House Hospitality, a New York-based, full-service hospitality advisory, development and operations management firm which he founded, with offices in New York and most recently here in Dubai. In his role as CEO, he leads Atelier House Hospitality team to harmonize its capabilities with client goals and deliver unique experiences set on the art of creating different high-caliber food and beverage venues run to the highest operating standards. His core is underpinned by his global business acumen and entrepreneurial spirit, along with his intuitive grasp of where business and hospitality intersect. And where did he get this knowledge? Well, he acquired his deep business to client capability during his time in the very small role of President and Chief Operating Officer of Merrill Lynch and Company, worldwide, covering over 60,000 employees in 40 countries. He holds an MBA from Columbia University Graduate School of Business and a Bachelor's of Science degree from Boston University. Please welcome Mr. Ahmass Fakahany.
You can relax now.
You
did your main bit.
So congratulations on the new venture.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
You know, I'm really fascinated about this journey that you've taken, and I would love for you to share a little bit about your personal journey. You know, how you went from leading the world's largest, one of the world's largest financial firms, to getting into the restaurant and hospitality business. Tell us a little about your story.
Well, you have to have tremendous passion and a high degree of paranoia as well to be in this business. Look, I was born in Cairo. I'm Egyptian. I left when I was 4 years old and grew up in Switzerland and then England. I got to England when I was 11 years old, and during that period of time, I was just fascinated and loved the hospitality business, hotels, restaurants, and so forth. And I considered going to the Hotel Management School of Lausanne, but you had to speak 4 European languages, and the Swiss. They make things a little difficult. And my father was delighted this nonsense stopped, and I ended up studying business and moving into Wall Street, and got lucky enough to eventually be president of the firm. But as I managed my life in chapters, I was wondering what I wanted to do next. I almost stayed in finance, but this seed, this heartfelt purpose that I experienced as a youngster stayed with me. It never died. And so I thought I'd try to reinvent myself, and for the past 10 years I've been in food and beverage, going through the pain and the joys of this sector. That's how I got into it.
Great. So, obviously finance and hospitality industries are both demanding and risky and, and many times just totally relentless.
Yeah.
When you think about building a restaurant empire after running a financial institution, is there a moment that sort of catalyzed this leap for you? Did you feel like you hit a point where you had this new journey to take on? Maybe share a little bit, this is a masochistic business we're in, and it's one where, I wouldn't say the finance is easy, but I mean, we're dealing with just gritty level of operations. What made you really change that and apply what you had in finance?
I think when you enter this business, we all love food and beverage, and I tell my people we're in the business of memories, really more than anything else, and creating memories for people. But just the reality of the business, it's such a hard business, as you know, and the romance goes quickly, and so the cross point for me is seeing the harshness of the business and making sure your people are in the right place. So, at the beginning when we opened our first restaurant, it was successful and there were celebrities there, you get really welled up into that moment. And then the next call you get is the toilets are flooding, And the next call you get is there's a problem with the food costs. So the moment for me was when you realize this is a business, you can have passion, but you still have to understand that you have to be totally loyal to metrics and running it professionally.
And New York is, I have restaurants in the West Coast, and I have clients all over, and I think New York's one of the, as an outsider, probably one of the scariest places to open a restaurant. And tell me a little bit about your real estate strategy for New York and how you learned to open up restaurants in a place that is so difficult to function in.
I have to tell you all here, New York is the hardest place to open a restaurant. I've opened a place in London, in Istanbul, in Hong Kong. We're here in Dubai, hopefully to start a journey. It's a very hard place, as you say, and it's hard because the landlords and the real estate pieces are relentless. Wage economics is going the other way. There's regulatory fragmentation. There's price compression. I mean, all these nasty things. But the real estate piece for us, you're so right. You have to get that right. In this business, and that's where finance helps a little bit, you can get that wrong, and then your whole team is working very hard, not knowing you can't afford the rent or the things that go with that. So for us, the strategy has been around taking as many long-term leases as we can, so you can have a bit more negotiating capability with the landlord. Coming up with different structures, because my finance team also are, financial types from financial industry, coming up with different structures and methods to align the cost of the real estate asset to the revenue profile. So frankly, we had to really sit down and really focus on it rather than get romanticized with a space. And the other thing is we made mistakes. And in America right now, there are so many rules around ADA or handicap access. There's so many rules around new code that you have to apply to. So we started to get smart. Which asset is for us? Something could look really cute, but it's going to be a problem,
So let's talk a little bit about Atelier House.
Yeah.
And, obviously you've got, you're an operator, and I have an affinity to operators. I think that it's the only way to understand how to do development is to really understand what your consumer, what your client is really going to experience. What are you trying to accomplish opening Atelier House here, a branch in Dubai, and what can folks here learn about how you want to differentiate the experience of building this business here?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I totally agree with you. First of all, learning and having the brick and mortar piece is very important to be able to navigate a different angle in this business. Atelier House is focused on being a consultant, an advisor, a asset manager, and also in operations to take on circumstances where we can help a client, but also is a brand provider from the United States and maybe from here to the United States and New York. What we're doing here right now, even though we're a young company, is we hope to have one of our flagship brands, Merrill from New York City, which is highly acclaimed, come into DIFC before the end of the year. And that's a transfer of a brand. At the same time, we're creating a local brand here called Mohalla, which is an Indian street food concept, indigenously created, and hopefully that can have some legs here too. So, it's this kind of symbiosis between two great cities, and two cities with a lot of density and affluence as well, New York and Dubai, but playing at 3-4 levels: consulting and advice, asset management and operations, and then 3 brands. And we very much hope, because of our New York capability, we could be a bridge for people in this room and others who may want to bring their brands also to New York. New York is a tough place to operate if you don't know what you're doing, and maybe we can be that bridge between the two cities.
We see here, in Dubai, seems like more restaurants open every day than anywhere I've seen, and the investment that goes into them, it feels like they're working on it with a different economic model in many ways. What could you say and what could you share and what might the community here learn from some of your experiences around thinking about realistic economic modeling and understanding of ROI? It's just I'm baffled in some ways by seeing the sustainability of businesses and a way of thinking about return on investment.
Back to running this as a business, if something is going really well, is going your way, and it seems too good to be true, then it is too good to be true. At the end of the day, the phase we're in, and I think where Dubai is starting to enter more and more, is what's happening below the top line revenue level is becoming critical, and how to leverage your internal capabilities, invest in people who can understand all the cost metrics and so forth. I think, the food I've had here and continue to have is fabulous. I think it's going to be moving up the quality curve a little bit because there's a lot of people here who are going to have to up their game. I also strongly feel that the consumer and the voice of the consumer through technology here and the feedback that's being given, as you and I have to face in San Francisco and New York, is constant through not just Instagram, as you mentioned, all the other mediums, but it's a huge influence on how an operator can excel. So the ROI piece comes back to really understanding your cost base, your marketing, and your strategy around that. Having a good chef and quality becomes more of a given. You got to have the product, but it's not enough anymore. It's not enough.
So you've built a virtual empire in New York of Italian food. And tell us a little bit about why Italian is right. And, it's clearly an ancient cuisine.
Yeah.
Maybe tell me a little bit about what the connection is there and why Italian and what was so important to you to get into that space.
I as a youngster, I love Italian food. I feel it's a very comfortable food that can also be elevated. But strategically, because there's the heart and the head, Italian food is the #1 food that bridges globally to anyone's local palate and local food. And I like that. If you're in Japan, you like pasta with crab. You like it in the Middle East. You like it in the USA. It has a very good cross-border citizenship to it. Not everyone wakes up and dreams of a rabbit or hare terrine. It's a bit more complex. And so I think it has approachability, which then creates the point that you're talking about, community. It's something that can also be shared. There's a lot of family that goes with it. But it also has the range to play. Maria in New York is 2 Michelin. Ifior is also Michelin, but you don't have to be at that level. You can have quality in different segments, but are still joined by the ethos of Italian food in the parameters. So I think it has that range globally, and I happen to love it too. And it shows in the waistline.
Kind of reflecting on this sort of presentation about what's going on in the U.S. and even the futuristic presentation, are there things that you see emerging here in Dubai? What social or economic movements are happening here now in this dynamic marketplace that people need to respond to that you see?
What I'm noticing is that the consumer here is moving up the knowledge and intelligence curve very, very quickly with technology. And some of the things that we've had to experience in the United States over the past 3-4 years are happening instantly here in terms of feedback mechanisms and so forth. I think that's going to be an influence here, how reviews are being consolidated, what the aggregate masses are thinking, what friends say to each other. In New York, when we have 5 people at a dinner table, we really have 3,000 people at the dinner table. By the time everyone's Instagramming, taking photos, the play-by-play, and I'm getting comments and reviews while they're eating. We even have someone tweeting that their chair is too tight. Within 2 minutes, we go up to them and give them a new chair. So that may not have come to Dubai yet, but look out. I think this interactive client to operator and owner dynamic is going to get tighter. And I think Dubai, being an international city and a prominent city and a very established player in the world, will also go through that phase in the maturity cycle. I think that's coming.
Now, you're going to be opening Marea here in DFC.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that choice of real estate, the why there. Tell us a little bit about the team. There's many people bring a brand to Dubai, and 6 months later it gets packed up and goes away. And these are big names, big name people from all around the world.
Yeah.
And so there's no guarantee, right, that just because you're a big name international chef that your restaurant will be successful in Dubai. And it's a big question that I constantly think, like, what are all the components and pieces to the puzzle that you think about when opening up a restaurant in this marketplace?
Well, thank you for scaring the hell out of me. Look, everyone who's in food and beverage, we all live 2 feet from the cliff, and if you don't worry, I need to learn from you how to navigate that constant paranoia and fear. I think you're right. There's a chance we'll pack our bags and walk with our tail between our legs, embarrassed back to where we came from. But I think Marea has a place here. And when you say let's talk through the dynamics, there's something happening. I came here as a much younger man, as a senior executive in Wall Street, to give a speech at DIFC when we were opening a branch here. And a lot has changed, but can I tell you something? There's a huge still focus on DIFC. When you talk about where to eat in a more elevated fashion, that is still one of the center points. The Jumeirah area is another center point. So research, we were talking about that last night together as we were sharing ideas, is so important. And there is so many restaurants here, there's so many locations, but as you try to look at the risk profile and where might you have a chance, that's what we're talking about, to maybe have a better shot at it. This brand, which has legs and the stability and is established in that location with the neighborhood restaurants, seemed like, besides all the financials and the metrics and all the analysis we did, seemed like it could be something that hopefully that could work here versus having a place right near the airport, okay? And there might be consolidation coming here. There might be a bit more challenges, but don't worry, there'll be a great F&B market here all the same. I know there's a lot of commentary on what that means, but it's a maturity cycle. But I still think and hope that the IFC will still be there, and a place that is listening to the client and changing with the mood of the place still has a place in that location. So I think it was a location study, it was a risk study, and it was, can this type of brand be assimilated locally as well? And we said, let's give it a try.
Well, I think if anyone's going to be successful at it, you will be.
Don't jinx me, brother.
Okay. Never jinx. Thinking about inspiration and things that help you wake up in the morning every day, just what gets you out of bed in that way, like how do you personally get inspiration, whether it be in the marketplace or through what? Family, friends, people? What are the things that inspire you every day?
We were also talking yesterday, when you're owner of a company and you're an entrepreneur versus a big company we had with 63,000 people, you have to look in the mirror every morning to motivate yourself, and you can't bring your laundry into work, and the tone at the top is very important, and you have to carry that burden. For me, what motivates me is actually developing our people, and when they kind of getting it right and they start to have that owner mentality, that buzzes me. I'm at a point in my life to an age where the social contract between you and your leadership team and employees is very important. And I come from a culture and maybe background because of the large company that I ran, a knowledge that 6, 7, 8, 10 people working together the right way can influence hundreds of people, and those hundreds can then influence a whole bunch of others. So I really get inspired by that. I go home and, you know, don't need the credit, want them to have the credit, feel that if they're leading in the right way, that the company will be a better place, and maybe I've done my job right. That feels good at the end of the day.
That's a beautiful thing to hear. We're just about winding down now. You know, is there any parting words that you have? You know, you're going to become a big part of this community. You're beginning to be one, and there are many people who are locals. Is there any sort of message that you want to convey to them as part of your journey, you know, to become part of this community?
I would say, first of all, more than delighted to be here. I'm more than delighted to reconnect with my roots, even though I left the Middle East at a very young age. But I think, you know, back to where we started, you know, this is a dynamic business. It's moving around convenience and choice with technology and other things that you very well articulated. But it's still a business, so, you know, you got to be tough. Don't fall in love with anything, even if it's your grandmother's falafel. You know, you got to fire your grandmother if you have to. And you got to do it with pride. I think you really need to. We had to go through these lessons in New York, and what's great about New York is such a hard environment and competitive that it teaches you skill. We already are a black belt in pain, and so, you know, look through the client's lens always. Always see things from the client's perspective rather than pushing your product. So this is a society now where it's not product push but demand pull. And I would also say that if you want to, if those of you who are not operators want to invest, I would come selfishly to New York through people like us, Alia House, because, you know, we've gone through X number of permits and liquor attorneys and all the stuff. People arrive at JFK and they think they're going to pick up suitcases of bags of money, and, you know, it's they don't. So I think decide who might be your partner. And you also mentioned the keyword collaboration. This is a world where no one has all the right answers, and you need to collaborate more on many aspects. And it's happened in fashion, in music, and why not in hospitality too, where people are mixing their ideas together. That's what I would say.
Great. Well, Ahmass, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you. Well done. Let's